of Champions, Mr. Hoover.
Hey, everybody. Dwayne Hoover, the man you can trust.
Dwayne Hoover is the best employer in town.
Dwayne. It's Dwayne Hoover. Dwayne Hoover.
Dwayne Hoover. People know who you are, don't they?
Hey, folks, it's me. Dwayne Hoover. Wait, folks, it's me. I'm telling you that Dwayne Hoover is sane and doing things he never used to. Who am I? I'm so confused. Yeah? I just need somebody to talk to, that's all. Kill, gold, trap. Kill, gold, trap. On the planet, everything's reversed. It's chaos. Everything's kind of backwards. Extinct. God bless America! That there is Dwayne Hoover on television, and I trust him.
Hey!
I trust you, Dwayne. If only you'd tell me which Dwayne to trust.
Dwayne? Where am I? In Midland City. I need to hear truth I haven't heard before. Kilgore Trout.
Well, there's something interesting in Kilgore Trout, huh?
Kilgore Trout should win the Nobel Prize for Literature.
You got that right.
Kilgore Trout! Kilgore Trout!
Dwayne Hoover, am I losing you?
Is this what I'm here for?
If you knew the answer, there'd be no more questions.
Dwayne knows. Everybody knows. Ooh.
From the best-selling novel by Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
Hey!
Bruce Willis, Albert Finney, Nick Nolte, Barbara Hershey, Glenne Headly, Lukas Haas, Omar Epps.
You don't have to be crazy to work here, but sure helps.
What the hell ain't meant by that, huh?
In an Alan Rudolph film, Breakfast of Champions.
Hi there, I'm Beth. I'm 50% of the Made for TV Movie Club podcast, where we review TV films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. On our YouTube channel, MFTV Now Playing, we review films and interview people in the entertainment industry. Today, I want to talk about a film from 1999 called Breakfast of Champions. It is having its 25th anniversary and was restored in 4K and will be released theatrically starting November 1st, 2024. Having said that, as I said, it's the 25th anniversary, but because it did not get very good reviews and it was not widely received, it actually never really had a big theatrical run back when it was released in 1999. It was also, according to Alan Rudolph, the writer and director who I interviewed, did not ever, was never put out on DVD or on VHS. So not a lot of people have seen this movie. Fortunately for me, I was able to get a screener because I did interview Alan Rudolph, and that interview should be coming out shortly. You can search in the channel for that. But a lot of people haven't seen this movie, and yet it still has not gotten good reviews. It has a 24% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and historically, when it first came out, it just was panned so badly that the company that was going to release the film had decided against doing it in a wide release. And therefore, it is sort of an unknown film that is just waiting to be found by a new generation. So, having said that, let's talk about first who is starring in the film. It's, as I said, Bruce Willis, Barbara Hershey, Nick Nolte, Omar Epps. It's got a really big cast. Everybody in this film brought their A game. It is a stellar performance by every single actor in every single scene of this movie, which I'm sure took a lot of energy because it is a very high energy film in very, very, very many ways. But it's a nonlinear film. For those of you who are not familiar with Kurt Vonnegut, his writing was very postmodern, and so therefore it was very nonlinear, and he didn't often tell stories from a beginning to an ending. So when I spoke with Alan, he was mentioning that he ended up deciding when he adapted this movie, he wanted to make sure that he caught some of the essence of the novel, of course, but it's difficult to tell a nonlinear story in a way that makes sense as a film. So he decided to focus on the characters in the film. So we most heavily focus on Bruce Willis's character, Dwayne Hoover, who plays a business owner. He owns a motel and he also owns a car dealership, a very famous car dealership in Midland City where the film is set. He is the face of the dealership, and his face is literally all over this dealership and all over the advertising. Albert Finney plays Kilgore Trout, and he does this magnificent performance because most of the film, the scenes that he films are himself alone. There's very few other people in the scenes with him until the very end. So it's a lot to carry as an actor to be the only person in a scene for a good amount of a film and to pull it off well. So let's talk about Dwayne Hoover's character for a moment. His character is suffering from um, some mental health, suffering from a mental health crisis. I don't want to get into too many details about that, that he is trying to overcome. But he says he is the face of this dealership. He always has to put on a very happy face. And you will notice that all over the dealership, there are cardboard cutouts of him. There are pictures. And as I said, there's billboards and him with the big smiley face. Now, I grew up in the Milwaukee area. And when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, we had somebody named TV Lenny, who was the face of um, the TV and appliance store, American of Madison, it was called. And he was all over the television. You saw him during the daytime, you saw him during the evening, and you saw him all the time. So you knew who he was and you knew what he was selling. And probably most big cities have somebody like that from the 70s and 80s, maybe the 90s. Maybe that still exists today. I don't watch a lot of daytime television and I don't watch a lot of live television. So I'm not really sure what is being advertised locally in my area anymore. But I know that I've traveled to other cities in the United States and I've seen a little bit of that. Perhaps some lawyers do some of that big, heavier advertising so that when you see their face, you know who they are. That's what I'm referring to. Another example, if you don't know what I'm talking about, would be there's a Seinfeld episode where Elaine dates the Wiz and nobody beats him. And he's, I believe, a mattress salesman. So that's what I'm talking about. This just sort of bigger than life characters and what we expect from them. And everybody in this cast is struggling and in their own way, and everybody is trying to put on a face for the world, but are that is not who they are on the outside. And I think that's a really big tell about what this movie is trying to share with us, and that is some of the bigger themes of our life. It's trying to show us that we're not who we say we are, that society is often um you know, not capturing the reality of what people are living. In fact, I think today more so than ever, this is a relevant movie because that's exactly it, right? We see what we want to see. We see beautiful people on Instagram. We see people doing things on TikTok, and we're jealous because we want their lives. But if you go and look deeper, sometimes their lives may not be what they're showing. And so I think that's what Dwayne Hoover at the heart of it is showing is that his life is not what it is in these big billboards and these big cardboard cutouts, and it's Hawaii week and everyone's supposed to be happy at the dealership. And then you have Harry LeSabre played by Nick Nolte, and his character, he's trying to hide a big secret and then he ends up accidentally sharing that secret, and the camera shows the secret to the world because it's live, and when you find out what his secret is, and now everybody knows it. And I kind of think that's relevant today as well. I mean, I think there's so many things going on. And having said all that, I want to say that I don't agree with a lot of the reviewers. I thought this was a good film. I thought it had a lot of heart. I think it has a lot to say about us as a society and how we perceive it and how it's perceived and how we struggle with those perceptions. And I think that Bruce Willis does such an amazing job of doing that with Dwayne Hoover because he can turn it on in a dime, right? But he's struggling so much on the inside. But he's also like a man who has a lot of issues because he's having an affair with his his secretary, and he's married to a woman who has some clear issues herself. And it's a sort of a strange dynamic. Now, I am a film critic and I'm a professor, so and I teach postmodernism and I teach deconstruction. So as a film viewer, I was able to sort of figure out what's going on, just knowing a lot of the tenets of postmodernism and deconstruction. And but I don't know that you need to know some of those things just to get a feeling about what the film is about and what the themes are. There are some unusual things in the movie, and again, it's a little bit nonlinear. It's more linear than what the Vonnegut novel would be, but there are still a lot of sort of unusual things that happen. And so, for instance, Bruce Willis is in a couple of scenes talking, and you actually see his brain on the side. They film him and they show a brain, and I think that is telling us, like, we're watching this person's mind and like what's happening in the scene, what's happening to his mind. Pay attention to what's going on in his head. It's telling you to pay attention. There's another scene where Bruce Willis is sort of walking from the showroom, like out in the parking lot where all the cars are, and he's walking to into the building where he works, the dealership building, and he's sort of slogging along as if his feet are sort of sinking into quicksand, and he's having a very difficult time getting where he needs to be. Clear symbolism of what is really happening inside of him. And so there's some effects like that are happening throughout the film. Kilgore Trout, when he sort of walks through this pond of sludge, possibly some kind of chemical spill type thing. And then at the very end, Kilgore Trout decides he doesn't want to be where he is anymore, and so he decides to move himself to another place, both physically and symbolically. And so there's sort of a special effect of him doing that I think is kind of interesting. So in a way, I think this film is actually truly in 1999 might have been a film from the future. It might not have resonated with audiences because it really I don't know. I think that maybe just people weren't ready to see what it has to say. And maybe today, I hope today that it's still relevant, if not more relevant than it was. And I hope that people watch it and understand that it's really trying to talk about some major themes on what's happening in our society. It is strangely lighthearted for what the content has in it. But as I said, I think the casting was amazing. I think every single person brought their A game. I think one of my favorite characters was Omar Epps' character, who plays Wayne Hubler, who, after leaving a jail sentence, he decides he wants to go work for Dwayne Hoover, and so he ends up kind of getting a job there and then living on the dealership's premises. It's an interesting way to tell his story, I think. And there's some really funny moments that he has. I also think Lukas Haas did such an amazing job. He played sort of like this lounge singer. He's the son of Dwayne and Celia Hoover, and he just sort of, I guess, is a character who wants to be more than what he is, and he kind of meets this manager who may not be a manager, and gets him a better gig at a bigger lounge in town at the hotel his dad works for. It's just interesting because I think there's so many layers to kind of go through and think about, and um really really give some thought to what it is really saying. Now, having said that, there were a couple of things I didn't love about this movie, and one of them is Dwayne and Cecilia. They have sort of this running discussion or theme about Blue Monday. Now, I know Blue Monday is on Mondays. You kind of get the blues because you don't want to go back to work. But there's also like a traditional Blue Mondays, the first Monday in January, where people start to like rethink their lives. It's kind of in the middle of winter. There's a lot going on and you get the blues. So Blue Monday. I'm not exactly sure what the Blue Monday they're referring to because they're doing it so often in this film. And so I felt a little bit like there was a joke that they had that I wasn't in on. And I don't think it was meant to be a joke. I think it was meant to be serious, but I didn't understand what that meant or what it was. And I found that a little bit frustrating because the more I thought about it, the less I understood. So I kind of just tried to stop thinking about it and what it meant. I mean, I'm sure that it had something to do with both of them in the place they are in their mental health, but it wasn't that clear to me. The other thing I really didn't like was um, the three main characters in the film, the three main women. Every time they talk like this, as if they were just oozing sexuality and just had to have a man right now. I didn't care for that. I thought it was too heavy-handed. I think he's probably Alan Rudolph was probably trying to make a point about how women are viewed in society or how women show themselves in society. I didn't really get it or understand the point, but it is what it is. Another little star of the show who was only in for a few minutes of the movie was Shawnee Smith. I love Shawnee Smith. She's one of my favorite actresses. And I told Alan, I said, I wish she would have been had a much bigger part in this movie or had been in more scenes in this movie. But she's the one who actually says Breakfast of Champions. She brings a martini and gives it to Dwayne Hoover and says, here you go. It's the Breakfast of Champions. And they have this little back and forth, and she's so happy to meet him, and she wants him to autograph her arm so that she can take it home and show her dad because they just saw him on TV and her dad would be really happy. And it's just sort of another scene where we see like how we just sort of worship somebody that we don't particularly know or even understand. And I think that's part of the beauty of this movie is there's so many layers and complexities to it. And that is what I really, really enjoyed about this movie. Now, if you've seen it, comment below and let me know what you thought about the Blue Monday or the women or anything at all about the movie that you liked or disliked. Because I'm really interested because so few people have really seen this film that I haven't had a conversation with anybody about it. Even my podcast partner Casey, she hasn't seen the film because she wasn't able to do the interview with me. So I haven't been able to talk to anybody about it, and I would love to talk to you about it. And in the meantime, if you want to see more of me, you can listen to me on the podcast, the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. We have socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Threads. We're on Insta. We're on X. Find us there and leave a comment below, and we'll see you in the Clubhouse.